What if I told you there's a 4,000-year-old clay tablet sitting in a museum right now that claims 8 kings ruled the earth for 241,200 years before a great flood wiped everything out? This isn't science fiction. It's not a modern hoax. This is the Sumerian King List, and it's one of the most mind-bending historical documents ever discovered. Because here's the thing. After the flood, the numbers suddenly become normal. So what's going on here? Is this ancient mythology, a mistranslation, or could this be a distorted memory of something that actually happened? Stick around, because this rabbit hole goes deep. Our story begins in the early 1900s in Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq, the cradle of civilization. Archaeologists were digging through the ruins of ancient Sumerian cities when they started finding something extraordinary: clay tablets covered in wedge-shaped cuneiform writing. But one tablet was different. It's called the Weld-Blundell Prism, and it's currently sitting in the Ashmolean Museum at Oxford. This 4-sided clay prism, baked hard in an ancient kiln, contains what the Sumerians called their complete history, a list of every king who ever ruled their land, going all the way back to when kingship descended from heaven. When scholars finally translated it, they couldn't believe what they were reading. The tablet doesn't start with normal history. It starts with something that seems completely impossible. 8 kings, 5 cities, and a combined reign of 241,200 years before a great flood wiped everything out. Let me read you exactly what it says. After the kingship descended from heaven, the kingship was in Eridu. In Eridu, Alulim became king. He ruled for 28,800 years. 28,800 years for one king. And it goes on. Alalangar ruled for 36,000 years. And Menluana ruled for 43,200 years. And Men-Galana ruled for 28,800 years. Until you get to the 8th king, Ubara-Tutu, who ruled for 18,600 years. Total it up, and you get 241,200 years of human history before a catastrophic event the tablet simply calls the flood. Now here's where it gets really interesting, because after listing these impossible reign lengths, the tablet includes one simple, haunting line. Then the flood swept over. Just like that, the flood swept over. And then something incredible happens. After the flood, the tablet continues listing kings, but suddenly the numbers drop dramatically. We're no longer talking about tens of thousands of years. The first king after the flood, Gusher, ruled for just 1,200 years. Still long by our standards, but it's a massive drop. And it keeps dropping. Within a few generations, you're seeing kings who ruled for 400 years, then 200, then 100. By the time you get to historically verified kings, people whose reigns we can actually confirm through archaeology, you're looking at completely normal lifespans: 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. Kings like Gilgamesh, yes, the Gilgamesh from the famous epic, he's on this list too, and his reign is listed as 126 years. Still long, but we're firmly in the realm of exaggeration rather than impossibility. And here's what makes this really credible. This isn't just one tablet. Archaeologists have found multiple copies of this king list from different Sumerian cities, and they all tell basically the same story. Different scribes, different time periods, but the same pattern. Impossibly long reigns before the flood, then a sudden dramatic drop afterward. The Sumerians clearly believed this was their actual history. This wasn't filed under mythology in their libraries. This was their official record, passed down and copied by scribes for over 1,000 years. Now, if you're familiar with the Bible, alarm bells might be going off right now, because there's another ancient text that talks about impossibly long lifespans before a great flood. In Genesis chapters 5 and 11, we get a genealogy from Adam to Abraham, and before the flood, we see lifespans that, while nowhere near 28,000 years, are still extraordinary by modern standards. Adam lived 930 years. Seth lived 912 years. Enosh lived 905 years. Methuselah lived 969 years. Then, just like the Sumerian King List, Genesis records a great flood, and just like the King List, after the flood, lifespans begin to drop rapidly. Noah lived 950 years, he was born before the flood. Shem lived 600 years. Eber lived 464 years. Abraham lived 175 years. By the time you get to Moses and King David, you're looking at normal human lifespans of 70 to 120 years. The pattern is identical: extraordinary lifespans before a catastrophic flood, followed by a steep decline afterward. Now, these are two completely different cultures. The Sumerian King List was written in Cuneiform by pagan priests. Genesis was written in Hebrew by Israelite scribes. They're separated by geography, language, and religion, but they're telling versions of the same story. So what do we make of this? Scholars have debated the Sumerian King List for over a century, and there are several theories. Some say these are just myth, symbolic numbers meant to show the divine authority of ancient kings. The longer the reign, the more legitimate the ruler. It's propaganda, not history. But if that's true, why do the numbers suddenly become realistic? Why create a mythology that debunks itself? Maybe the Sumerians used a different timekeeping system. Perhaps years meant months or seasons or lunar cycles. But mathematically, this doesn't work. Even if you divide by 12, you still get impossibly long reigns. And it doesn't explain why the post-flood numbers are already realistic. They didn't change their calendar system at the flood. This is the most intriguing theory. What if something really did happen? What if there was a time when human lifespans were dramatically different and some catastrophic event, maybe a flood, reset everything? What if the Sumerians and the Hebrews are both preserving a memory of real events, but the numbers got exaggerated as the stories were passed down through oral tradition? We know there's geological evidence of catastrophic flooding in Mesopotamia. We know ancient cultures around the world have flood legends. The Epic of Gilgamesh has a flood story. The Bible has a flood story. Hindu texts mention a great flood. Chinese legends speak of a flood. Is it possible they're all remembering the same event? The Sumerian King List is one of humanity's oldest documents, and it raises more questions than it answers. Why would ancient scribes record such impossible numbers? Why does the pattern match Genesis so closely? And what really happened before the flood? This is just the first piece of the puzzle. In our next episode, we're going to look at another ancient mystery that might be connected: the Nephilim, the mysterious giants mentioned in Genesis 6. And in episode 3, we'll explore the ancient astronaut theory and ask whether something else was going on in the ancient world. But I want to hear from you. Do you think the Sumerian King List is mythology, mistranslation, or something more? Drop your theories in the comments below. If you found this fascinating, smash that like button. It really helps the algorithm push this video to more curious minds like yours. And subscribe, because this series is only going to get wilder. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next episode. Trust me, if you thought 241,200-year-old kings were strange, wait until you see what's coming next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.